capitalism. And the reason for that is both because of opportunity and necessity. So opportunity in terms of, as Paul mentioned, the fourth industrial revolution, technology is enabling us to connect and collaborate and do things, set up businesses like we've never been able to before. And then secondly, the necessity is because of the challenges facing humanity now, the climate crisis, social inequality, these kinds of things that have raised their heads and become front and center. These not only are challenges, but also present a massive opportunity in terms of green economy and work and jobs that will be created in this sector. I think the latest statistics I saw was that the green economy is going to be a $50 trillion economy by 2050, and will produce over 1,000, climate tech alone will produce 1,000 unicorn businesses. So massive opportunities there. And that's not all going to be solved just by big businesses like Unilever, but will require many small and medium-sized enterprises and entrepreneurs to make this happen. The other necessity is there's actually also going to be a bit of a shortage of stable jobs. So the Unilevers of this world are not going to be able to create enough jobs for every young person to get a job in a big company like a Unilever. In fact, there's a shortage of jobs in my home continent, like Africa, across South Asia, these areas. And in fact, I heard from Ravi Venkatesan of the Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. He was quoting a statistic from India that if you have a degree in India, a young person is 6 times less likely to have a job than someone without any formal education. And it's because the kinds of jobs that a degreed person would like to get in India just aren't available, whereas the jobs are all in the informal sector, where actually less educated or uneducated people are getting those jobs. So really, to succeed in the 21st century, it's not just about becoming an entrepreneur, but having that entrepreneurial mindset. And I believe this has been defined as the set of beliefs and skills to identify and make the most of opportunities and overcome and learn from setbacks in a variety of settings. Now, that sounds to me like a great thing to learn, no matter whether you're going to become an entrepreneur or move into other businesses, or even become an advocate or a campaigner like a Yumna out there. So for me, in terms of the state of jobs and work going forwards, not only just the next 5 to 10 years, but beyond, it's really going to be about making sure that you do develop that entrepreneurial mindset, because that will open you up to whatever opportunities there are out there. And there are many. And I think the other thing I heard about entrepreneurs is they're the people who find opportunities and problems rather than problems and opportunities. So, and that's, I think, what we need right now, people who find opportunities in problems. But I'll pause there because I know there's lots more to carry on with.
Thank you. That's great. And Paul, actually, same question to you. How do you see the future of work changing for young people?
First off, it's just all changing. And for some people, just change is difficult, whether you're a big organization or an individual, the uncertainty. So I think just, not taking that as the anxiety, and a little bit like Patty was saying, find the opportunity in the problems instead of, finding the problem. I hear a lot of people when they hear future work, beyond sort of the consultant speak, they think, oh my God, artificial intelligence and robots are taking over. They're going to take our jobs and do everything for us. I don't think we're going to be in some sort of dystopian Matrix or Terminator world. I think it's going to be more about, again, technology in the form of robots and AI augmenting, life and what we're doing. Also, I kind of go back and just, for the contrast, when I started my career, it was still sort of a sense of, great, you're going to study, you're going into a career, you might change employers, but even back in the early 90s, it was kind of like, probably work for the same employer for the better part of your career, might change once or twice. Now that's all on its head. To the point of the entrepreneurialism, it's you're building skills. I probably have 4 or 5 different careers, and don't even talk about employers. You might be working for yourself. You might be doing gig economy stuff. It's very, very fluid. The two sides of the coin you're kind of competing in a global market. And so there's lots of opportunity, but it's also a really deep ocean, and, that's kind of challenging and scary at times as well. I think overall, again, moving from sort of this linear, you study, you develop certain specializations or skills, and then you go and work in a career. It's just become far more fluid. You're constantly learning, constantly adapting, constantly going after those new opportunities. So hopefully for most people, that's sort of exciting because you're not kind of stuck on one lane. And if you don't like it, oh, well, too bad. Life just becomes a lot more opportunity. So I think that's really exciting about the future of work too.
Brilliant, thank you. And so it's interesting when we talk about this future of work, a lot of us, especially in the UK and in the global South, think about sustainability becoming a bigger part of our future as climate change becomes a bigger part of our future. But Jalidah, I wanted to talk to you now. You're based in Uganda. And as I said, in the global North, we speak about climate change as something in the future, but how are you finding that climate change is impacting the lives and livelihoods of young people in Uganda right now?
Thank you, Holly, for that good question. Uganda, like any other country, is being affected by climate change. And today's young people and the subsequent generations will increasingly face these impacts when we don't act, when we don't change the situation. From our research, we found out that many young people had disrupted livelihoods. Uganda is an agricultural country, and many youths and young people depend on agriculture to sustain their lives. So with increasing floods and drought, the agriculture is interrupted with low yields, low sales, which end up affecting their general income. And due to this, and because they need to sustain their lives, they resort to shifting to other informal sectors, which are also affected by climate change. For example, the carpentry, when you have drought, there are no trees for carpentry. And then the brick making, if the climate is interrupted, they will not be able to do that work. And we also found out that we have disrupted education in our country. Many youths and young people are not able to go to school because of financial constraints. And this results from the law. The interrupted agriculture, the loss of jobs, that they are not able to go to school. And this has created many young girls into early marriages, increase in teenage pregnancies, and the situation has been worsened by the COVID-19 in our country. And besides that, the country has fully opened the education system, but we have a report that 5 million young people are not able to go back to school because of the financial constraints and all these challenges in our country. We also have climate-related displacements. These are either voluntary and the first ones. The first ones happen when the event has happened, when the floods and droughts have hit the different regions. So they have to forcefully migrate and be displaced to other regions. We also have the voluntary migrations, the displacements. These are in response to the disaster preparedness. The government can issue out a document about disaster preparedness. When they anticipate a certain disaster to happen, they always tell the people to migrate. And this has resulted into loss of homes. People have lost families, distorted livelihoods. People have to shift to other areas and start a new life, just increasing the levels of poverty in our country. We also have nutritional deficit. When agriculture is interrupted, people are not able to get the safe, sufficient, nutritious food. And many young people and adults are being affected with this. We have malnutrition in certain regions of our country. The inequalities have really worsened the situation. People cannot afford food, they cannot afford water. Everything is so worse and being affected by COVID-19. You find that in urban areas, people cannot afford buying a certain meal. The cost of living are so high, and many have been forced to shift to rural areas where the situation is so worse. People are not certain about the future. They don't know what is going to happen. We also have mental health issues. In this COVID-19 situation, we have had a lot of these related issues. People are not certain about their future. When they are not in school, when young people are not in school, they are not getting jobs, they are unemployed. There is this stress that comes around because they need to sustain their lives. They are so uncertain about their future. They don't know what is going to happen. And all this has resulted into people are so anxious and they have mental health related issues in this. We also have the we also have the disrupted, I talked about the disrupted education, disrupted livelihoods, and the climate-related displacement, the nutrition deficit, and the mental health. And I continue to say the situation has been worsened by COVID-19 situation. Indeed, yeah. And from the research, we are able to make some recommendations whereby we need the leaders, the political leaders, to really give a platform such that the voices of the youth and the young people can really be heard, because they have brilliant ideas, they have innovative ideas that can really solve their problems. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. There's a really interesting perspective there, and really important for us to take on board as well. So it sounds like we've got in the future and in the present a lot of opportunities, as Paul and Paddy pointed out, but we also have challenges as well that we need to be meeting. And hopefully over the next sort of half an hour, we can talk about those challenges and those opportunities and what skills we can start to equip our young people with, so that we can start to meet those challenges head on. So I'm going to go to Yumna now. What skills do you hope to see prioritised in the future?
I definitely want to see a lot of critical thinking skills and problem solving skills prioritized in the future, because currently young people are not being taught at the scale that we need, you know, that society and civilization is moving at. Our education systems have been built on standardization instead of flexibility, conformity over personalization, and competitiveness over effective collaboration. And I think that our education system hasn't been as adaptive or flexible or evolved at the level that we need it to. And it continues to force children and young people to fit into a school rather than enabling the school to fit the child. And it uses a curriculum model, which is built on what children and young people should know rather than what we want to know or what we are interested in or what we're curious about or what we desperately want to learn. And so I think that young people's views need to be heard on this, in the sense where we're actually being consulted on our curriculum, and we feel like our skills are being developed. And right now in our schools, it's just everything's on a subject by subject basis. There's no interdisciplinary learning, and I think that lack of that disconnect between subjects, like it's really weird to me. It's like the world is so complex that your young people are going to schools being taught subject by subject and aren't being able to make the links. And in the real world, it's just not like that. I mean, when you go to work, you're not just working on one project. You're thinking about lots of different skills. You're thinking about the team dynamic. You're thinking about so many different things. And I think the schooling environment doesn't really pay attention to that. And I think if we create schools which are, create schools and learning environments where young people are able to, be role model citizens, in the sense where they're aware of social justice issues in the world, they have the skill, they have the tool, and they have the network to be able to create and design innovative solutions to problems that exist, and look at opportunity like Paddy and Paul were talking about, looking at opportunities first. I think those are the sort of skills that we need to develop in our young people, and especially helping young people learn things like, what is going on in the climate change crisis right now. We're not being taught about sustainability in our schools. We're not being really taught financial literacy in our schools, political education. All these things are being missed out from the curriculum. And I think that it leaves our young people at a disadvantage.
Thank you, Yumna. That's a really good point. And it's something that I'm sure Jane would love to speak to, because Jane, earlier when we spoke earlier in the week about what you'd like to say, I know interdisciplinary learning was a huge thing for you. So yeah, over to you, Jane.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm reflecting that the British education system hasn't done too bad a job producing someone like Yumna, to be honest. But absolutely, I agree. And I was really struck by what you said there, Yumna, about the focus that certainly the curriculum in this country, and I think in a lot of the global north, and I'm not so sure about the global south, but is on what young people need to know. And I think it's not that that's not important. Of course, I believe in knowledge is critical, and I don't think it's really important that we don't dilute standards in thinking in a different way. But I do think we should start with who do we want our young people to be, and that it's about values, and it's about the qualities that are necessary to thrive and prosper and do what we need to do for each other in the 21st century. So yes, I am a big believer and exponent of cross-curricular learning, interdisciplinary learning. There are practical issues that we need to address, and I think it's as I say, it's not. I don't believe in multidisciplinary. I believe in interdisciplinary, and that's a really key distinction that I think as school leaders we need to be aware of. You can't richly bring subjects together unless you have a good basic understanding of those subjects separately. So we there is a reason why curricula were designed in these subject silos, and you do need obviously people to have a grounding. And Yumna, you've become an enormously articulate, wonderful storyteller and a young person because you were taught English by somebody brilliant at some point, I imagine. But what we need, I think we need to be doing, certainly what we're seeking to do in my school, is absolutely finding ways in which you can connect your subjects as creatively and organically and fluidly, which is another word that's been used a lot, as possible. One way in the UK, we have something called PSCHE, which is basically our personal and social and citizenship learning. It is a requirement from the curriculum. Seems to me that we absolutely need to ensure that sustainability and climate awareness is absolutely core to the PSCHE curriculum. I have no idea why it isn't. At the moment, you cover off the climate in the margins of other things. So the climate emergency is covered a little bit in geography, a little bit in science, but it's sort of marginal. We absolutely need to say, in the same way that it is critical that you learn basic things about how to look after yourselves or how to keep healthy, how do we keep our planet healthy, or rather, how can we make it a bit healthier? Seems to be really key. And in fact, in this country, Lord Jim Knight is currently trying to get a bill through Parliament specifically on this issue, his Education and Environment Sustainable Citizenship Bill, brilliant bill. And he said in his introductory speech, in the future, every job will be a green job. That is exactly right. That is what we are educating for. There is not a single child in my school of 1,300 kids who won't be going out into some sort of role, and as Paul said, potentially many roles in which they won't have to think about the climate and how to solve the problems we have created. So we have to find ways of doing that. So citizenship PSHE is one way. And the other thing is that we've designed a specific course in our school called the Alain's Learner Project. We have made time on our timetable for it, and it specifically requires our pupils to bring together the skills of problem solving, creative thinking, communication, working together, influencing, so on, to solve climate issues. So they actually have to do that. We give them real problems. We ask them to come up with real solutions, present them, and do all of that. And it's fun. They love it. It's so, and that's another thing. We need to make it joyful. And again, I think it was you, Paul, who said find the opportunity, or was it you, Paddy? Find the opportunity in the problem. And one of the opportunities is for really joyful and imaginative collaboration. So we've got to build time into our curricula to do that. And that's what we're trying to do here.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jane. It's so inspiring hearing about what you're doing at your school, and it makes me really wish that I was either working there or a student there.
Oh, do come.
Yeah. Paddy, that leads really nicely on to something that I know that you're very passionate about personally, but also at Unilever at large, which is doing well by doing good. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, I'll just add on to what we've just been saying. I love what you were saying, Jane, that teaching young people, everyone, to find that opportunity in the problem and to focus it on sustainability is so important. I would just add on, and this might shock some of you, but that we should also be joyful about making money. And this is a key part that we miss out on in so much of the kind of education. It seems like teaching people how to make money seems to be something that's bad, and we don't want to go there. You know, we'd rather teach you know, the joy of collaboration, which is fantastic. But unless we can make money from some of these ideas and things, unfortunately, they're not going to go anywhere. That's how the world sort of works as we know it. We can campaign a lot, we can do that kind of thing, but unless businesses get behind some of these things and really look at how they can make money from sustainability, driving sustainability forwards, we're going to leave out a massive sector that's really important to get this climate economy and climate crisis sorted out. So Unilever is passionate about that. That's what our business is founded on. Doing well by doing good. Our founder, Lord Lever, when he originally started, Unilever started with Sunlight Soap, which is all about making cleanliness commonplace and therefore stopping basic diseases that people were getting because they didn't have access to soap. Our modern day vision is about making sustainable living commonplace. And so all of our brands, we work to try and find ways in which they can find the intersection between sustainability issues and things that they can stand for. So Hellmann's was recently in the press here in the UK with some of investors in Unilever saying, why is Unilever bothering with finding a purpose for Hellmann's? It's just for putting on sandwiches and salads, isn't it? Funnily enough, Hellmann's is one of our fastest growing brands. It has a really strong sustainable mission to reduce food waste in the world by helping people use their leftovers, combining it with Hellmann's so they get nutritious meals and don't throw away their food. And so actually finding a good purpose for your brand that helps your brand make money, help sort out an issue in the world, that's the nexus that we really need to go after and that young people need to be taught about, because those are the complex problems that we're going to need to deal with in the future. If every person in China wanted a washing machine, the same as the number of people have it, you know, same as access in the US, there wouldn't be enough water in China to go around to make all those washing machines work. If every person in China wanted a car to the same per capita rate as they have in the US, there wouldn't be enough oil. You know, these are fundamental issues that are going to be hitting us, and business needs to figure out different ways of powering cars like we're doing with electricity and that sort of thing, and making all these basic things work that'll be sustainable for us. So those nutty problems, finding out how to make money from them as well, is where we need to go.
That's fascinating. It really is. So, Paul, I'm going to come to you now. Obviously, Pearson is sort of well known for its work in the qualification space and sort of for creating exams and qualifications. I just wondered kind of what role can qualifications play in equipping young people to build a sustainable future?
Thanks, Holly. Really good question. And a little bit like I was saying about, you know, my time in the tech sector, I'm not the expert in qualifications, but I probably know just enough to be dangerous. With the transformation that's happening in education, going from a very linear, very structured, very formal approach to education, you know, you look at employers, they would say, oh, he went to New York University, that's a good school, therefore, you know, right for the job, qualified for the job. Now we're into a situation where there's just such a proliferation of formal and informal educational opportunities. You see everything as well in this blend of sort of the formal structured, you know, say 2-year, 4-year degrees, certificates, vocations, everything else. The accreditation is really important as kind of a check and balance of both the quality of the education, the quality of the learning, and then also what, you know, you're acquiring, retaining as knowledge and skills. Even today, I think there are a lot of not so high quality certificates. You know, there's kind of the things that are sort of ginned up as being certificates. So having a very robust standardization around accreditations, qualifications, certifications is a really important part of this massive transformation and disruption that's happening in education. It's kind of like the check and balance of, you know, the quality check of, yep, this is, you know, I'm getting what I need as a learner, as a student, but then translating that into employment or other uses, others can look and say, yep, this person, they have the right skills, they have the right competencies.
Great, thank you. Because it's easy to forget when we think about all these incredible topics that we want to bring into schools, but actually the power that you say that qualifications have beyond school and going into the future workplace as well. I can't believe how quickly we're running out of time, and I have so many wonderful questions that I'd love to pitch to you, and I can see as well that we're getting some really great questions from our attendees as well. So I'm going to pitch a couple more to you, and then we're going to go to our Q&As. But first of all, I just wanted to ask, we'll go with Yumna. What's missing right now from our current education systems, and what do you think needs to change?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I think a lot of things need to be changed about our current education system, especially here in the UK. It's basically still based on a industrial factory model, which assumes that all children and young people are the same and therefore promotes uniformity, which I don't like. And a lot of people can argue, yeah, that education system has evolved, rightly so it has. But it hasn't evolved at the level that we need it to. There's been so many instances, like for me, for example, in class of this, why are we learning this? And, you know, Jane probably understands, like, why are we learning this? I'm never going to need this. And in a lot of educators' minds, it's just a regular question that they get and they need to answer with the box standard of, you know, it's just on the curriculum, or we just have to get through this for today. Or some teachers have given like a really weak scenario of why they need to learn this, so because supposedly something may happen in the future. And I think our education system is obsessed with comparing students, isolating us, and it develops this notion of individualism even more and overemphasizes, I think, formal testing and assessment. I think in a lot of cases, it perpetuates inequality by placing greater value on some types of learning, academic and more traditional subjects, and giving less worth to children and young people with other skills, interests, and abilities. And I'm not saying this is in all schools. There are a lot of different schools out there with alternative learning models of education, the Montessori, the Reggio Emilia. There's so many different alternative education models out there now. But a lot of young people are still stuck in a mainstream education system. Like I am, for example, I attend a normal state school. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but a lot of these schools promote a culture of fear in which, you know, adults have absolute authority and young people are just expected to just listen and go ahead. And especially in underserved communities where I live, especially in Birmingham, it's an inner city deprived area in Birmingham. It's becoming increasingly common for schools to be led by white middle class teachers in senior leadership team. But the teachers who are actually doing the majority of the work, who are working with the young people and having the most contact time, are teachers from minority communities. And it creates this level of hierarchy amongst teachers even. And these teachers are often overworked, tired, exhausted, and frustrated at the system because they don't know why they're teaching young people a curriculum that they don't want to receive. And the national curriculum says young people like myself are expected to learn about, quote, how Britain has influenced and been influenced by the wider world. But when it comes to Britain, for example, its history of colonialism, racial injustice, extraction of, you know, labor from people, violence, its effect on the climate change crisis, involvement in past and current wars, genocides, and so on. They've been hidden. It's been hidden from young people. It's been sectioned off, and the depoliticization of our education system, especially in the UK, has meant that a lot of young people like myself have had to educate themselves outside of learning environments, outside of these, you know, formal learning settings. And it said things of this nature. They've been sort of boxed off into 1 month of learning, for example, bland PowerPoint sessions in Black History Month, of African American whilst revolutionaries. It's not teaching me about Black British history. And I can go on for days speaking about how it's even embedded in, you know, the Department for Education, its policies. And like Jane was saying before, it undervalues the importance of play, imagination, creativity. And often it seems that children and young people are imperfect in a way. I always get the sense that a lot of adults in school think that young people are not fully formed. And I don't mean this in a bad way, but it sort of prioritizes academic attainment and achievement. And whilst it's, you know, it's really good to focus on that, we need to focus on students' well-being and how we see ourselves as individuals. We need to be able to take our full selves in classrooms and see ourselves as part of a larger ecosystem. And I can literally just go on, but there are so many things wrong. But I also think that there are many things that are incredible about our, you know, education system. I know our teachers, especially during the pandemic, have put a lot of effort and time to check in with students, try and, you know, to help students as much as they can and try and connect them with their environment, with nature and with the local community. I think we need to do more of that, of thinking about how can we make our schools a more safe and inclusive space for students to vocalize their concerns, and also how can we help students become the change makers that they are, because young people are leading in doing incredible things right now, but it's how do we uplift them, how do we embrace, you know, what they're doing, and how do we make sure that young people's mental health is being well taken care of as well, and, you know, our concerns are actually being listened to. That was long and ramsy, but I hope that made sense.
But very, very important. Thank you, Yumna. And it's the perfect segue to my last question to Jalidah, which is, how can teachers and leaders empower young people to make change?
Thank you for this brilliant question. I want youth and young people to know that they are the change themselves, and the change is now. By the leaders and teachers can better empower them by partnering with them and amplifying their voices in decision-making spaces. The young people want their voices to be heard, and they are willing to contribute to development in their communities. The leaders can also the teachers can also offer mentorship sessions to these young people. They can also support the student-led organization, the student-led clubs, where we see some of these skills are being taught to these learners, and they can also support them in issuing out and giving them platforms where their voices can always be heard. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if there's one thing that we all agree on today, is the importance and the power of young people's voices, and hearing both of you speak today is just inspiring for all of us here. I'm going to have a look now at some of our questions from our kind of attendees, our viewers. This one's for Jane, but actually feel free anyone to jump in. Anonymous attendee says, the foundations of the Education Act 1952 were social, moral, spiritual and cultural education. Why or where did we lose focus on this? So it's this idea of actually, and it kind of ties into a question from Debbie as well, like how and why have we lost our kind of connection to compassion, social, moral, spiritual education?
I mean, that is a big question. And very hard to answer, because to be honest, I think it's about progress. I mean, it's, you know, on the whole, education is a mirror for what's happening socially and in society at large and politically. And, you know, I mean, league tables in the 80s, that did quite a lot with the obsession with measuring things in a particular way, data-driven assessment that becomes public, and therefore a very, very powerful and emotive measure. That was one thing, but I honestly think our education system reflects. I mean, this is a government issue, and someone in the chat asked, you know, should teachers be more disobedient? Which I love. I love the idea of creative disobedience. I hope none of my teachers are listening at the moment. But in a way, you know, we are in this exciting point, partly because kids are being disobedient. You know, they're just rising up and saying, "Sod it, we've had enough of it." Sorry to swear. And to some extent, I think there is. I think we should be. We just need, we must not break the law. I am not saying that, but we do need to use all of the leverage that we have within a law-abiding democracy to get our government to listen to what needs to happen. And in education, we need really creative thought and disruptive thought. We need to stop doing what we have been doing for, you know, nigh on 50, 60 years. It is a ridiculous curriculum. Don't get me started on, you know, the fact that we still assess people by asking them to sit in a hall for 3 hours and write things. Anyway, so we have, and there is real need for this. And there's the climate need. There is also, of course, the mental health need, which others have talked about. You know, we are at a point, and I think if we just need to keep on lobbying and keep on pushing and make our voices heard. And it's certainly my job as a leader of a school to enable and empower our children to feel able to use their voices.
Fantastic. We've got only a few minutes remaining, and I would so love to hear from all of you about all the different opinions you have on this. And I'm sure there's lots of people who want to hear more. I just want to end on a lovely question from Lucy, who says, compassion is a huge part of creating a sustainable future. How do you think compassion can be developed in people? And that's just open to anyone. How can we develop that really important sort of vital skill that's so important?
For me, it's always been about walking in someone else's shoes and understanding their situation, so that you can build that empathy and compassion. I mean, we've seen that so many times that you walk a mile in someone else's shoes and suddenly you really understand them. And I think that for me links to the point I was making about the making money point as well. It's about really understanding people's concerns and issues and that sort of thing, and then seeing how not only can you solve that, but if you can do it in a way that makes money, then you can actually make sure that business gets interested in it and takes it forward. So yeah, that'll be it for me.
Thank you. And it's a really good point again to show that actually it's not just about our educators and our teachers, and it's not just about young people, but it is about getting businesses involved and getting these skills sort of everyone is responsible. Paul.
Yeah, I just I go back to something that Patty said of finding the opportunity in problems. I think it's really hard to watch the news, to look at the state of the world today and not just get completely paralyzed with, oh my God, and there have been a number of comments about the global South versus the global North. I'm very, very conscious of that as well, that, I'm in a much more privileged situation than, over half of the population of the globe. I think, again, looking for the opportunities, being open to connecting, really breaking down, frankly, the stereotypes and how we like to put things in boxes and labels and categories, be open and curious to learning new things, communicate very openly with others rather than have stereotypes of what someone can do or what they know. It's going to take completely different thinking and complete openness to be working together collaboratively. I know that sounds like sort of, corporate buzzword bingo, but it really is a change in the mindset of how we're doing business, how we're living, how we're going to school today.
Absolutely. And I mean, it ties in beautifully with what I said at the beginning about Reboot the Future's mission, which is to encourage everyone to treat each other and the planet as you wish to be treated, to come together and collaborate. We all have a responsibility, whether we are young people, whether we are teachers, educators, business leaders, writers of qualifications, to make sure that we're empowering our young people, we're letting them express their voices and to live in a way that creates this better, more compassionate, more sustainable, more equitable future. I'm so sorry to have to wrap it up already. It feels like we've got so much more to go, but I just want to say thank you to all of our speakers today. You've been fantastic. And thank you to all of you who tuned into the conversation and to those of you who asked questions as well. If you're interested in bringing global learning into your classroom, you can visit our educational platform, Global Dimension. It's globaldimension.org.uk. We've got hundreds of resources that allow you to bring global context, compassion, connection into the classroom, as well as articles, calendar events, and we have a global learning wall planner as well. We're also on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so you can give us a follow. We're at Future Reboot and also at Global Dimension. I hope you all have a really lovely evening. Thank you so much and goodbye.